should we
Yep.
wait until the hour? Okay, we can get started. Well, thank you so much for having us here this, I guess, afternoon. My name is Daniela Levi Pinto, and I am the project coordinator with Nnels, National Network for Equitable Library Service. I've been working in the area of accessibility for about 3 years now, but I have a different background. I come from the world of political science. And I am also totally blind. So I am a user of accessible formats. Rian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Daniela. My name is Rianne Lepere. I am the Braille and Accessibility Testing Coordinator at Nnels. You may recognize me from World Braille Day that we did earlier this year, and if not, that's okay too. I have been working in accessibility for over a decade now. I came from the K-12 sector and then worked my way over to Nnels, where I have found a wonderful home.
Excellent. So we are going to be talking about the work that Nnels does. Rian and I are going to be kind of talking about different things. So I will start by talking a little bit about Nnels and the service. And then Rian will talk about a little bit about Braille. Then I will cover some of the work that Nnels has been doing in the area of accessible publishing. And then we will both talk about some of the exciting work that other people with print disabilities are doing with Nnels in the area of accessibility testing. So Nnels, as I said, stands for National Network for Equitable Library Service. Nnels is actually a service provided by the BC Libraries Cooperative, which is based in BC, and it's a national leader in technology and provides services to public libraries that are members of the co-op. Nnels is funded by 8 provinces and territories. So these include British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nova Scotia, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. A unique feature of Nnels is that anyone who's a patron of Nnels from these funding provinces can actually request any title they want from Nnels, and if it is not accessible already if it is not available rather in an accessible format, we will create it for the patron. And there is no limit to these. I mean, the limit is really the number that we can produce, but it is really a unique feature. So our collection is greatly informed by what our users want to read. Since the pandemic started, Nnels opened access to people from other jurisdictions in Canada, even if they are in provinces that do not fund the Nnels service, because we recognize that the pandemic has a much more important impact on people with disabilities. So we wanted to do as much as we could to help in this trying time. And we have seen a very important increase in the number of titles downloaded. For example, in comparing the previous year, it has been an increase of about 75%. So it is important to continue providing that service for as long as the pandemic continues. And also, because of the pandemic, or to try to do our part, Nnels produces information, accessible information on graphs and charts related to numbers of the pandemic. So if you go to the Nnels website, there is a section with accessible information. We can, I mean, if there are questions, we can talk a little bit more about that. But essentially, they're like the charts are accessible, and there's also zonifications for some of the graphs, and that that is a very important project. It's very meaningful because when the pandemic started, we of course realized that a lot of the information that was being circulated by news organizations and even government departments was not entirely accessible. We have in the Nnels repository, we have more than 41,000 titles, including ebooks and audiobooks, and about 13,000 of these are entirely Canadian content. As I said, a great driver of what we have in our repository is what our users want to read. So we can Nnels, because of the exception in the Copyright Act, Section 32, we can produce accessible versions of commercially available titles if they are not available in actually an accessible format. And we can also purchase content from, for example, audiobook vendors and make it available through our repository to our users. And this is important because some of the platforms in which some of these audiobooks are sold are always not necessarily accessible. So that's another piece. We provide, we have many different formats in our repository, including DAISY, EPUB, MP3, even PDF, and some e-text as well, so Word files. We also create accessible versions of different awards, so like Canada Reads and all the different literary awards. We produce them and make them available to our users. And a lot of this work, I mean, the core operations of Nnels are funded, as I said, by the 8 provinces and territories that I mentioned earlier. But a lot of the extra work, in particular with to purchase content and to work in other areas, which we will cover a little bit later, is made possible thanks to federal funding. So this funding has allowed Nnels to expand its areas of work and actually be able to produce better content in that, if I could say so, almost perfect content. And Rian will, for example, talk about electronic Braille and how that works. So perhaps I think this is a good segue for Rian. Do you want to talk about Braille and the distributed Braille collection?
It's Brian, the co-host. I just want to quickly interject. Just if you could make sure if you're able to finish maybe around 20:15, well, not totally finished, but just I'd love to have some time for questions, because I think a lot of people have a lot of questions for what you guys do, and it's such a great service, but I just don't think enough people know about it. So maybe if you could wrap up the presentation around 20:15 or 20:00, because our next HumanWare is at 1:30 Pacific. So I just think some time for questions would be important.
Okay. Sure thing. Thanks.
Will do.
So the distributed Braille collection that Nnels hosts is funded by the federal government, and it came out of the 2018 paper Improving Braille Availability in Public Library. And so we embarked on a pilot project to kind of understand the potential for a shared public library collection of Braille books. And so now in its 3rd year of the project, we have over 100 titles in 20 libraries across Canada. And Kind of the unique thing about the Braille collection is that it is hosted in public libraries. So it's not a one-stop shopping. And even if you don't live in one of those communities that has a Braille host library, you can still access it. And there is unrestricted access across Canada for any user. And all you have to do is talk to your public library, your local public library, about the possibility of interlibrary loaning a Braille book. So if you provide the title or ask them what kind of books you're interested in, or talk about the distributed Braille collection at Nnels and look at the catalog for the distributed Braille collection and select a title that you'd like and know where it's available. You can talk to the public library staff in your community and ask them to acquire it from one of the other public libraries across Canada, and then they'll ship it to the library and you'll be able to borrow it. Which is similar to, I'd say, how like the hosted collection of CNIB used to work a long time ago, where they'd kind of like ship to the public library, you'd pick up your books and then return them. It's kind of similar there, but at least these books now just live in public libraries. And we're always on the hunt for more public libraries to host Braille and encourage people or public libraries to have their own Braille collections as well. But we're trying little by little to get as many titles as possible. And we believe that this is really important. Because public libraries are palaces for the people. And to make sure that these palaces are equitable and inclusive, it's important that we can see resources in a number of different formats in those public libraries and talk about how we can use them for programming and book clubs and all sorts of integrated library services. And another kind of cool feature with our distributed Braille collection is that we work really closely with publishers to choose titles and have them choose titles that they think will be of public interest. And we produce those simultaneously with their print releases. So they are available to you online through our digital repository, as well as through those public libraries on the same day as print release, which is really, I think, speaks volumes to actual equitable reading access, and we feel is very important. This year, we've done quite a few simultaneous releases, and we hope to improve that number every year. And I think that covers all of my notes about the Oh, no, sorry. I should mention that as part of the distributed Braille collection, we do have Braille files available electronically in our repository as well. And those are in BRF format, and they can be downloaded and read on a refreshable Braille display or embossed for your own reading. And we are working to try and find more ways to improve that collection all the time. And Danielle, I'll hand it back to you to talk about some of the other work we do with publishers.
Thank you, Rian. So Nnels is advocating and working towards born accessible publishing. So this means that we are working with publishers to help them refine their workflows and really produce whenever they create an ebook, that it will be accessible, to have image descriptions, to have headings so that users can navigate the content more easily. And this work, again, is funded through the federal government. The government is putting a lot of emphasis on accessible publishing. But publishers need to understand what this means, and also how they can improve the experience for readers with print disabilities. And this is where we come. So we first create awareness with publishers and explain the barriers that the lack of different features create for blind readers or readers with other kind of print disabilities. We audit their files and we advise them on how to improve accessibility. Also, we are actively working with other stakeholders like the DAISY Consortium and creating guidelines and documentation to help publishers improve their files. Also, as part of the federal funding, we are another project is the human narrated audiobooks. So these are audiobooks that we either pay a narrator or find a volunteer narrator that will read the book, and we will, we'll record it, and then we will create a DAISY file out of that book. So in this project, there's also a component of representation. So trying to match the narrator of the book with the protagonist of the book. So if it is a person of color, to that it is actually narrated by someone, a person of color as well. And this is important as well in creating and fostering diversity and inclusion. And another important piece for accessible reading is actually the accessibility of reading applications. So these are the platforms or applications that we use to access books. And in particular, Nnels has been doing a lot of work testing library applications. So like Overdrive and Arbit Digital, Tumblebooks, all these platforms that we can access through public libraries, but they are not necessarily accessible. The buttons are not labeled, the links may not work. So our team of accessibility testers check out, they systematically test these applications, and we produce reports that then we share with the creators of these platforms for them to have the information and to improve accessibility, but also through these reports, librarians have access to them and to the information that will help them provide a better service to their users. Rian, do you want to briefly talk about the assistive technology component here?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to the wonderful people at Canadian Assistive Technology and Humanware, our team of amazing accessibility testers are going to be doing assistive technology reviews and posting them up for users so that they can make more informed decisions in their purchases. We know that the companies often provide demonstration devices and stuff, but sometimes it's nice to have other people's perspectives and reviews as well. And they are, we're also writing some of those reviews up in the scape of purchasing recommendations for public libraries who want to include Braille displays on their search terminals or information desks. So we're trying to kind of make it full circle and applicable for as many people as possible. And we're really thankful to those relationships and partnerships we have with Canadian Assistive Technology and Humanware to make that possible. And we are working with to try and to do more of that, but that's just like a little bit of a sneak peek of what's to expect in the upcoming couple months here. And we look forward to getting our hands on some of those devices to be able to review them and take a little bit of a break from some of those reading platforms as well. But I'm sure we'll be testing a lot of those displays with those reading platforms. I'm just being conscious of the time here, Daniela. I'm just going to maybe do like a quick plug about, we'd love it if you'd follow us on our social media pages on Twitter and Facebook to see what's new and what's happening at Nnels and kind of the, fun new things that are in our collection or projects that we're involved with. So it's on Twitter, it's at NnelsCA, and it's Nnels Canada on Facebook. And I think, Danielle, unless you have anything else to add, we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we pretty much covered it. And yeah, let's open the floor.
Alrighty, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. Brian?
I have a question, but I'm waiting to see if someone else has raised their hand, they can go first.
They have not, so you can go, Brian.
I would just like to ask, and I think this is important to clear something up for some people, is a lot of people seem to be confused as to why there are two organizations in Canada working on it or talking about accessibility for books. There is CELA and there is also Nnels. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, maybe what the differences are between the organizations or why there are two, or I don't know, just anything sort of relating to that, because I think it causes quite a bit of confusion in Canada, and I think your services are so important, so I just really want more people to know about Nnels. And yeah, if you could just speak on that for a couple minutes.
To put it very, very simply, because two's better than one. More services equal more books, which means more access. But Daniela, maybe do you want to do the long version?
Yeah, I mean, there's some history that I am not entirely, it was before my time, the time I joined Nnels, but the two organizations, I mean, there are differences in the I guess the coverage or the number of users that they may serve. There are also some difference in some of the services. So, for example, a unique feature of Nnels, as I explained earlier, is the ability for users to request any titles they want. CELA offers other things that Nnels doesn't. So really, it's from Nnels' perspective, it is a matter of inclusion and choice. As Ryan said, two is better than one, and definitely better than none. And we feel that, or I feel that the two organizations, like what we really need in Canada is equitable reading, and knowing that there are so many gaps in terms of accessibility on the part of reading applications or library websites. Really, there's still a lot of need for library services like the ones that we provide. So yeah, that I guess I'll stop here.
Yeah, I think
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks a lot for the answer. And I just think inclusion is so important, and I think it is great. We don't want just one option. We don't want to have to be forced into one choice, but a lot of hands are coming up. So you know what? I'm going to stop talking and we'll move on to somebody else. But thank you so much for answering my question.
The next, Mary Ellen had her hand raised.
But she lowered it.
I just wanted to ask you to explain. There are 5 provinces and 3 territories in which, by virtue of being a borrower from your public library, you are automatically, once your print disability is proven, entitled to Nnels services. What do people who live in Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and PEI do to get access to Nnels?
That's a great question. So right now, it is possible for people from those provinces to get access because of the pandemic, access to Nnels. And so like people can go to the website and request.
Register. Yeah.
Yeah.
But post-pandemic, you'd have to advocate to your provincial body for to be a Nnels funding province, I guess.
So anyone who wants to can go to nnels.ca and register and get access to Nnels right away. Right now during the pandemic. Is that correct? You don't have to go through your public library if you are in a library that is not part of this?
Yes, you do not have to go through the public library. I actually am not able to confirm 100% if like the access is immediate.
No, I'm sure you have to do a few things, but just generally speaking, that's that way.
Yes,
and so
that is correct.
we all need to go to our provinces or our public libraries and ask them to participate in Nnels post-pandemic. Do we know yet when the pandemic loosened rules will be tightened up again? Obviously, I guess that depends. How will that be determined when the pandemic is sufficiently over to end that?
Yeah, I think that's you're thinking ahead of me here. But,
To be determined.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So for right now, everybody sign up.
Yes.
Absolutely, and we got to get Nnels into Ontario. So next up, I see Elizabeth has her hand raised. I've invited you to unmute. You're good.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the great presentation. I love Nnels. I'm wondering, is there any, and you might have already mentioned this, is there any thought or development of an app that could be used with Nnels? I know it works with voice stream and everything, but I was wondering there might be a specific app, and also using like a Victor reader, or, well, I don't know. I just was wondering if there's any other ways that we can access books that way, if I'm making any sense.
You do, and those are great questions. So most of our books, if you download them, will work with a Victor reader. And in terms of an app, it's a great question, because we are in the process of integrating the Nnels collection into Easy Reader, the app, so that users can actually sign, like put their username and through the app, and then download content from the Nnels repository directly into the Easy Reader app and start listening or reading. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
We also have Justin with a raised hand. I am inviting you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, just making sure. Great presentation. A two-part question from me. First, how much of the NNELS is funded by the federal government?
So, the core operations are funded through the 5 provinces and 3 territories. The funding that Nnels currently receives per year from the federal government is more than what we get from the funding provinces, and thanks to the federal funding, which is $1 million a year so far, that covers all the other work that we are doing with accessible publishing and creating more formats, and the formats that also cost more to produce, like audiobooks and electronic braille, and
Okay, not to put a negative spin on things, but just thinking out loud here, does that not leave NNELS at the mercy of that funding, say if it were to be cut off, or is there a plan B in place just in case something like that were to happen to safeguard the production of accessible literacy?
that is a really good question, and without getting into a lot of details, yes, I mean, it is losing federal funding would have an impact for what Nnels can do. We are hoping that that will not happen. A plan B would be either trying to find alternative sources of funding to, I guess, to compensate for a potential loss of the federal funding. That we hope that we will not be in that situation. But yeah, I mean, if federal funding goes away, we would be in a difficult situation. No doubt.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I would say that like we would still be producing titles, maybe not necessarily in some of the specialty areas like Braille or audio, but those electronic titles would still exist.
Okay, thank you so much.
We have time
Do you have
for
part 2 of your
one or
question?
two more.
No, that was the part 2.
Okay.
The funding was the first bit, so thank you so much.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions, and then Humanware is coming up next if anyone has any more questions for Nnels.
I just want to quickly add in there if someone does. I contributed to that accessibility in libraries and public libraries paper you mentioned in your presentation, and I was honored to do so because, yes, I believe we need options and we need it in Ontario. My library has turned me down, won't let me. So the pandemic's been a blessing in one way.
Yeah, we do have a host library in Ontario for Braille. Fun fact. So that was a huge success.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. Six Nations Public Library was our first Ontario host library. And yeah, you can still go to your local library and say, hey, can we borrow from these other libraries? And they should be able to get them in for you.
Yeah, I hit a brick wall with mine.
Oh, that's my thing.
All right. Well, unless there are any other questions, give you another few seconds. But
yeah,
if not,
this is great. Thank you
yeah,
very much.
Thank you so much for coming, Danielle and Rihanna. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name properly. Rianne.
Rianne.
And that was
Yeah.
very